Welcome, everybody, to the FullScale Outdoors Podcast. I'm Dale Luginbill. I will be your host from now until the end of time. Probably not till the end of time. Anyways, here I am in my little humble podcast studio. And by that, I mean it's my basement, i.e., man cave. I got the fire stoked. Got myself a beer. Beer of choice today is Kugel's Snowdrift Vanilla Port. They are not a sponsor. I have no sponsors. Yet, anyways, I am sponsored by FullScale Outdoors. How about that? It's my own company. So, how did we get here and what is this all about? Well, that is a dang good question. I'm like interviewing myself. This is weird. Anyways, so this first episode here, I figure I'll just dive right in and kind of explain what FullScale Outdoors is about, what I'm about, what you can expect from this podcast. The name FullScale Outdoors is supposed to be kind of all-encompassing. It's full scale. It's got multiple meanings. But as I go and I do stuff outside, whether it's fishing or hunting, foraging, I pretty much only have one speed, and that's full speed dead ahead. I like to do stuff the hard way. Not for any machismo reason, just because I don't know. I don't know why I need. I'm gonna need a psychologist to figure that one out. But I like the challenge of it. I like to challenge myself, and that's usually what I do, and it usually doesn't work out for me. But anyways, what I mean by that is I don't even know what I mean by that. We'll get into that later. But just for a quick reference, I'll just give you a snippet into how ridiculous my mind works. So, I'm a bow hunter, and I love it. I love everything about it. I'm a meat hunter. I mean, I would like a nice rack on a big buck, but the paradox, the weird thing about myself when I get into that is, if I was purely a meat hunter, I would just go out with a gun, right? Wouldn't that make sense? Like, you're gonna have the easiest way to put food in the freezer, right? I mean, that's gonna be way easier than trying to do it with a bow. But I have zero interest in shooting a deer with a gun. I got no problem with other people doing it. That this isn't I'm not in the bow camp, and gun hunters are lazy and this, that, and the other thing. That is not it at all. Like, hey, if it's legal, have at it, boys. I do not care. Like, I just don't. I just personally like to use a bow. I just get more satisfaction out of it. So it's this weird thing about I'm more of a meat eater than a trophy hunter, but yet I do it the most inefficient way possible. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So, but yet here I am. So, anyways, back to what FullScale is. Like I said, it's fishing, it's hunting, it's foraging, it's trapping. From an early age, I grew up pretty typical Midwestern life as far as, my dad fished. So we all fished, little 14-foot boat, bench seat, 10 or 15 horsepower outboard that seemed to rarely work. And my dad was a preacher, and if there's one thing that can get a preacher to use some colorful language, it's probably one of those outboards, because when they don't work, I think we've all been there. Anyways, but the weird thing is, I didn't come from a family of hunters. Like, nobody in my family hunted. I didn't really have any uncles. I think there were some uncles and cousins on my mom's side that we never really hung out. I don't know, just distance wise. Didn't get invited on any hunts, or so I just wasn't my immediate family. We weren't hunters, but I was always, from as far back as I can remember, I wanted to hunt. I wanted to hunt. I wanted to trap. I wanted to learn as much about the outdoors as I possibly could. So I just immersed myself into it. But I had a little well, I'm going way back now. I'm starting to remember. So really early on, just starting to read, and like before I could read, I was anything that had to do with animals, right? Any nature book, what have you. I was before I could read, I was looking at the pictures. So I know a lot about animals, and so I got this. I don't know. This is gonna show my age. I used to read this magazine called Ranger Rick, and I think it was the National Geographic like kid version of National Geographic. And so, not surprisingly, knowing what I know now, I kind of started to develop this, well, what would be like considered an animal lover today, or like an anti-hunter almost sentiment. Like I would see as I got a little older, like maybe 7, 8, 9, started to develop some opinions. Like if I saw somebody with, say, like a raccoon tail hanging off their uh, truck antenna or something, that would like make me mad and be like, I don't see the reason why somebody would kill that thing, blah, 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 blah. But so that was kind of like that. I kind of had that going on, but there was always this nagging voice in the back of my mind that wanted to hunt, or that was at least curious about it and curious about trapping. And so that those kind of things, like somehow I was able to separate it. Like I could read a story about a hunter, I could read a magazine and not get offended, but somehow I would see a fur and I would get mad. Granted, I was a kid, I didn't know what the heck I was talking about, but so that's the beginning of my paradoxical mind waves, I guess you want to call them. But anyways, I guess it was about so we fish, and basically my dad's version of fishing. Like it's, I look back on it now, and it's amazing we caught as many fish as we did. My dad's tackle box consisted of he had a handful of jigs that he never used. Um, we had some bobbers, the old clip-on red and white bobbers, and then the Lindy Little Joe spinners, just a snelled hook, some beads, and a spinner, and then he had some swivels and then some weights. My dad was very fond of the rubber core weights. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but it's like a long bullet shaped piece of lead, and then in the middle is like this piece of rubber that goes in there, and he liked those. I guess I always hated them. I seemed like I could never get them on there right, and I, I thought it was easier just to use the pinch on weights. You need more weight, you just pinch on another one, and then have to take one off, swap it out. But that's neither here nor there. Well, that's all we did. We would troll between 8 and 14 feet of water, whether it was a river or a lake. It didn't matter. That's what we did. And they were either biting or they weren't. We would change spinner colors, and our baits of choice were leech, minnow, or worm. And that's it. Every now and again, Dad would use a bobber. However, he wouldn't take the spinner off. He would just attach the bobber to that and throw that thing out there. Hey, we caught fish. To this day, I guess it's selective memory. We remember the successes, I guess. I don't know, because I don't remember too many bad days. And then as I got older, I remember going back one time to this river that we grew up fishing, and I remember like I just like, well, this is what we do, and I put on those spinners and I trolled around and I couldn't buy a bite. I just couldn't get bit, and I was like, oh, I guess they're just not biting. Um, no, I just was fishing the wrong way. I mean, that's just how it was. I had an underwater camera at the time, and I put the underwater camera down there to see what it was. And this is a northern Minnesota river. It's like bog stained. It looks like coffee. And I was like, I'm not gonna be able to see anything with this. Like it's so dark, you can't see the bottom. To my amazement, I dropped that camera down there. I could see for forever, it seemed. So you got this dark bog stained water, and then there's like a dark bottom. So when on top looking down in, you can't see anything. But when you're down below, I mean, I guess it's kind of like looking through tea or looking through thin coffee. Like I could see everything. So I just started drifting downstream, and it was quite illuminating, no pun intended, but welcomed. There wasn't shit down there. Like it was a random stick here and there. And we used to just troll right down the middle of this stinking river. So it's a miracle we ever caught anything because something would have had to have left cover by like 15, 20 yards to come chase our spinners. So basically, the only time we caught fish is when they were just like on fire and snapping at everything. Um, but, anyways, so that's the basis of like my fishing experience growing up, which was very limited, very narrow field of, skill level, if you will, until like my teenage years. And then I started experimenting with other stuff. And the jigs my dad had in his box, he never used. He always like, oh, I used to jig a lot when I was younger, and we used to do quite well. And we'd go to the bait shop, he'd pick a brand new package of them up, throw them in his tackle box, and he would never mope them up. I would always rate his tackle box later, and then I would use them because once I broke out of that spinner thing, one of my favorite first lures was just a regular Mr. Twister. Man, you can catch, you'd be hard pressed if you had to pick one bait. You're stranded somewhere and you can only bring one lure with you. I don't think a regular ball head jig with a Mr. Twister tail, I don't care what color on there, you're gonna eat. You're gonna find something that's gonna eat that thing. Um, but so I kind of started breaking out into that, and then so that worked. And I started reading fishing magazines and picking up different, and to crankbaits and spinner baits. And again, so I started. We'd have like we'd go on vacations or we'd go on these fishing trips, and now I had all these wild ideas, right? In my dad's eyes, I'd have spinner baits and different jigs and what have you. And then he would always kind of chuckle at me, throwing these ridiculous things because in his mind, all you needed was this little Lindy little Joe spinner. And, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And, but it became a cool little, I don't know if it's not point of contention isn't the right word. That's too serious. Like, we can give each other grief about it, like I would tease him about, only using the spinner, and then he would be like, yeah, I ain't gonna catch nothing on that lure. But, we kind of worked it out. It was just one of those fun father-son dynamics. But that voice in the back of my mind, still that wanting to hunt voice in the back of my mind. Now, a very good friend of mine, Jim, he had some relatives that hunted. And so he kind of started getting into duck hunting a little bit in our senior year, maybe our junior year. At this time, we weren't going to the same school. I had moved away from the school where I met him in 4th grade through 10th grade. Yeah, through 10th grade. And then I moved to a different school for 11th and 12th grade. But we great friends, and we continue to this day to hang out. Not nearly as much as we should, but we try. Anyways, so he got a bunch of decoys over the course of however many years, and then we started hunting. And we were those guys, rowboat, squeaky oars, getting out there 5 minutes, before legal. We were the kids that everybody hates. All right, let's just be honest. If you're a waterfowler today, we were those kids. I apologize, but we didn't know any better. But we had some mild success. And then, if I remember right, now I'd have to ask Jim this, but somebody stole his decoys, right? So then, we were two broke kids. We couldn't afford to run out and buy a bunch more decoys. So that was pretty much the end of that. And just went back to fishing. And then, as I learned a little bit more about fishing, this, that, and the other thing, with my circle of friends, or like a church group of friends, and, I take some of them fishing from time to time, and I kind of became the unofficial guide, if you will, because I was doing it more often. Um, and then they kind of grew up doing it, but got out of it, and then so kind of started to get back into it. And so, that gives a guy a little bit of confidence, and you start, you kind of have that reputation of the guy that knows how to catch fish. I even took a friend of mine, his dad, would go camping, and I definitely was the guide for that. And um, looking back on now, probably not the most successful guide in the history of guides, but at least I knew a little more than they did, and we got some fish, and we had a really good time. Um, but again, back to that nagging voice. And then one day, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna try this duck hunting thing again. I went to the store and I picked up a couple cheap decoys. I got like 2 wood duck decoys and maybe 4 mallards or something like that. I went out on the river, and now I'm quite a bit older now. I'm probably, oh my gosh, let's see. So this would be on wife number 2 that I'm on now, but she wasn't my wife then. We were just dating. So I would have to be, I was in my late 20s when I did this, probably 28, somewhere in that realm. And just, her family had a cabin on the river, and I just took the boat and went downstream, found this little offshoot creek, threw out the decoys, sat down in the weeds and waited. I don't even know if I had a call at the time. Not that it would have done me any good. I'd sound like a complete cartoon character probably trying to blow the thing, but I just sat there, and all of a sudden up come this channel. Here comes these 2 wood ducks just screaming. Pull up on one, take a shot, just crumpled it right there. I was like, this is easy. I haven't missed a step. Boom, I'm good at this, right? And then proceeded to miss like the next 10 shots. But I did end up with a couple wood ducks that day, and I'm pretty sure they weren't decoying, that they were just pass shoots. But that was it. I was hooked right there. I was just, before that I was fishing. Any available time, I was fishing, sun up, sundown. That was what it is. But now I had to start sharing. I had to start sharing my psyche with this new found hunting obsession. And it was an obsession. And most waterfowl hunters will tell you, like, of all the kinds of hunting, and maybe you'll get some arguments from hardcore turkey guys or hardcore whitetail guys, but the waterfowlers, in my opinion or in my experience, are the craziest. They're the most obsessive. We just do some absurd things in the name of this hobby. But that was it. I was just hooked. And then it's just a matter of reading picking up every magazine, watching every hunting video I could, and just soaking it all up, trying stuff. And again, here I am by myself. I'm in my late 20s. I don't have a circle of friends that hunt. I still don't have any family that hunt. Like, I'm rocking this stuff solo, just learning the hard way. Failure after failure, and just because it's such an obsession, because I loved it so much, I just kept doing it. I never really got frustrated with it, and just kept going. And now I'm 45, and by no means an expert at it, but at least I can fake my way through it. And then I found some friends through the internet, believe it or not. As goofy as it sounds, it probably doesn't sound that weird now, but I gotta remember now, I'm old enough where the internet was a new thing at one point in time that I remember. So these forums would pop up, and I think the one was called Minnesota Waterfowler, I do believe. And so I joined that forum and talked on there, and then you did the old hey, I got an open seat in the boat if anybody wants to hunt, and then somebody responded and ended up hunting with them, and then became hunting buddies, and then then I joined a couple other hunts like that down the line, and still started to grow my network a little bit, and I still hunt with these guys. And it's definitely a lot more fun having somebody to hunt with, for sure. And you learn a lot more. now we're to the point where we all think we know everything, and it's like a big pissing match, and we get argument like how to set the decoys, and what are you doing, dumbass, like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. It, I think there's a zillion memes out there now where, you put the decoy out there and somebody comes right behind you and moves it back, and no matter how many decoys you have out, you need more, or there's too many, there's not enough, or like, I think as hunters, we definitely overthink things like a lot, and that's just one of the things. So now I've branched into bow hunting. Like I said, earlier, I'm into archery, but I'm not. That's not an obsession. I mean, I'm kind of obsessed now because all I got this year is one little deer, and I really would like to get some more. Because I made these braised venison shanks the other week that, oh my God, I'm telling you, these things, if you just grind up your shanks or you don't even keep your shanks, bro, you're missing out. Like, you got it. Like, this was in the top 5 best meals of my life. And I'm talking places I've gone out to restaurants and eat. Like, this was amazing. My wife, who's not a huge venison fan, just raved about it. I mean, it was unbelievable. So, anyways, that's another skill I developed along the way is I've learned how to cook these things. When I first got into duck hunting, I remember way back, before we got out of it, we shot a couple ducks, brought it back. I was at my grandma's house at that time. And I brought it back and I fried them up in a pan and we ate them up, and it was terrible. I mean, it was dry, livery in the worst way. It was not good. I mean, I choked it down in the name of, eating what you kill, but it was not good. It was bad. And it wasn't until much later where I started to cook. I mean, when I met my now wife, everything I ate was out of a box, like or a bag. I'm making noodle-ronies and rice-a-ronies and TV dinners and stuff like that. I didn't cook. I mean, that's like, and then somewhere along the way, the DIY guy in me that's always trying to figure everything out was like, you know what, this meal, it seems pretty simple. This can't be that hard. And so I started looking at recipes and started toying around on my wife she's always been a good cook. Like, when we first met, she was making me bomb meals, like sending me to work with the plate of, fried chicken and mashed potatoes or baked potatoes, roasted potatoes, and you name it. Like, just these great meals, homemade meals that I've been eating out. Like I said, I was eating out of a box for however many years, and now along comes this woman that's just a great cook. So I've learned some stuff from her, and then I've kind of learned some stuff of my own, and now I'm pat myself on the back a little bit. I'm a pretty good cook when I need to be, and that's key for anybody out there that maybe you haven't had the best results when you're cooking your wild game. Like, thankfully you have the internet now. There's a million good recipes out there. I just listened to a podcast today. Joe Rogan. Steve Rinella is on there. If you don't know who Steve Rinella is, Steven Rinella, he's a host of Meat Eater podcast. He has a Meat Eater television show, but he's a really good cook too. Mal writes me. I've never ate his cooking, but I've watched his show and it looks pretty good. But he just came out with a cookbook. I don't remember the name of it, but I'm sure if you Google it, you'll find it. But in there, it sounds like, he breaks down all sorts, fish and all sorts of wild game, like how to take care of it, how to make it and stuff like that. So a pretty good resource. But you got YouTube, right? There's everything you can possibly believe on YouTube. That's how I learned how to do all sorts of stuff. But all right, I got way off track there. The deer shanks, oh, they were so good. Anyway, so I need more deer. So now, like, this season, I'm just like spending all my available time in the stand. But nothing's moving. I mean, this is where, I don't know, this time of year, I think it's rut, or tail end of the rut here in Minnesota. Maybe they're on that mysterious lockdown phase. But getting activity on my trail camera is just everything's at night. So, but sooner or later, one's gonna mess up, and hopefully, and I'll punch that tag. Um, get to fill that freezer with some more delicious venison. Definitely gonna be doing those shanks again. Oh God, they were so good. But we'll get down. We can get into that in another episode. Tell you how I did that and how it all worked out. But I've amassed quite a bit of knowledge over the years about the outdoor stuff. I started getting into the foraging, and that started early, or pretty simply with like morels, right? Like anybody that mushroom hunts, like they know morels, the spring morels. It's the perfect time of year, getting out of winter. Turkey hunting, it might be going on, might be the tail end of it, depending on where you're at. So there's not really much else to do. So it's a perfect like in between thing. Keep yourself, if you're an outdoor person, keep yourself busy. So I learned how to identify morels, which is pretty easy. Like it only has like the one look-alike, the false morel, and you put those two things side by side, and they don't really look anything like one another. And so I got obsessed with that, and spending a lot of time in the spring trouncing around the woods. Again, I didn't know anybody that did that. I just went out on my own. I mean, I remember the very first time I'm like, well, I'm going to go look for morels, and literally just walked into the woods and just looked down at the ground the whole time. I didn't know anything about like what kind of trees to look for, what habitat, like I don't know what I thought. Like I was just going to stumble upon this massive patch of morel mushrooms, and not surprising, I didn't find one. But I kept at it, and then you start picking up more tips. Like in Minnesota here, you look for dead elms and stuff like that, and then so then you had to learn to identify what an elm tree looked like, a dead elm tree looked like, and so I did that, and then I started to get some success, and then I ate it, and I never had them before. This is another one of those things. Like it was just in me to learn this and to go do it. And I'd never had morel mushroom. I didn't know what. I mean, I always liked regular mushrooms, so I assumed I would like those, but I was not prepared for just how good they were. Oh, I love morel mushrooms. So I did that for a few years, and then I'm reading this article in Outdoor News, and they talk about, and it's middle of summer, it's like July or August, and they're talking about these chanterelles. You can go out and harvest these chanterelles. And I was like, wait, what? I thought morels were the only safe wild mushroom. What are you even talking about right now? So I look into it, and I read this article, and I'm just deeply engrossed in it. And I'm looking at the pictures, and I'm like, I know those. I have seen those. I know exactly where some of those are right now. And I almost sprinted out of the house and ran into the woods. And sure enough, found some, brought them back. And then I started looking at the ID. I was still like nervous, right? Because most things you hear about wild mushrooms, you eat the wrong one, you're dead, right? So there's a saying, an adage when mushroom hunting is like, when in doubt, throw it out, right? Well, I'm checking out. It looks like the picture, the FullScales, the smells. I'm smelling this thing. It's supposed to smell like apricots, right? And I'm like, does it smell like, hey, baby, does this smell like apricots to you? Like, it just, but there's enough doubt in my mind that I didn't end up eating that batch, right? So I think I took some pictures. And again, there's early stages of the internet when I posted some pictures on this forum board. And then, oh my God, for the people that remember what a pain in the dick it was to post a picture. Like, kids these days just don't understand. Oh my God. So you had to use another site, like I think it was called Photo Bucket, and you had to like paste this code, and it depended, like there was different kinds of code for whatever platform you were trying to show this. It was ridiculous. Like, looking back at it now, I'm like, wow, like might as well churn our own butter. This is ridiculous. But we figured it out, right? So anyways, I put that on there, and there was like, yep, go for it. So I don't think it was until the following season where it came out again, and then I saw some, picked some, cleaned them up, fried them up, and they're delicious. Well, that just cracked the door open on a whole new world of wild mushrooms. All right, so now I'm, let's fast forward to today. Now I can go out and I can find, oyster mushrooms and different kinds of boletes, and you get black trumpets and lobster mushrooms, chicken of the woods, hen of the woods, honey mushrooms. Like there's a bunch of them, right? Like it's almost end. I got this giant book called Mushrooms Demystified. Demystified my ass. Like this thing, it's absolutely gigantic book, and it's not an easy read. Like this thing is not a page turner. Um, it was almost like learning a different language. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a great book. Like if you're into this, if you want to get into mushroom hunting, like I recommend this book. I highly recommend this book because when you start getting into mushrooms like boletes, there's some that are edible and there's some that are not. Um, and it like painstakingly, you got to go through basically like a checklist. Does it have this? Does it have that? Okay, we'll go to this. No, go to row 26. Does it have this? No. Does it have this? Yeah, go to 32. You just keep working down a list till you finally narrow it down. And then sometimes you got to go all the way to the sport print. Now, I haven't gotten to the point where I've bothered the sport print. Now they've reached the level of how much I want to work at this. Like, I need to be able to visually 100% identify this mushroom and go, yep, that's it. I can eat that or I can't. Now, if I got to spore print and wait to eat it, I just don't know of any mushrooms out there that are so good that it warrants having to go that extra step. Like the really good ones, the choice edibles, generally you don't have to do that. So I kind of draw the line at that. So there we go. And I'm fishing, I'm hunting, now I'm foraging. The mushroom then branches into, I start learning about all sorts of different wild greens you can eat and roots you can eat. And now I'm becoming basically like a survivalist, a wildlife survivalist, but I'm not. Like that's not why I'm doing these things. I just like have this DIY kind of mentality that I like to figure things out. I like to be like self-sufficient, and it's super rewarding. But now, like, I'll tell you what, there's nothing better than going out in the spring when the trout season kicks off. You go down, you catch some trout. While you're trouncing through the woods on your way to the trout stream, you find some morel mushrooms, maybe a pheasantback, a dryad saddle mushroom. Then you pick some ramps. Wild leeks are like, if you don't know what those are, they're like this wild oniony, garlicky thing. Like you go to cook a meal and you're going to put some garlic and some onion in it, right, to get that combination of flavors. Well, this thing grows in that combination. One of those plants is onion and garlic. It's amazing. Love it. And it happens to grow in the spring, right, with the morels. So you get your trout, you get your ramps, get your morels, and you go in the stream and you make that meal. Just make yourself a fire and you make that meal. Brother, I'm telling you, oh man, there aren't too many more meals like that in this world. And knowing that you went out and you got those things yourself, like the satisfaction that comes along with that, you can't beat it. You just can't beat it. So that's one aspect of full-scale outdoors, right? So there's full-scale outdoors. So you got hunting, fishing, foraging all wrapped up into one thing, and you throw in how to cook it, and it's full scale. It's everything. So that kind of gives you an idea of what that means. Now, what is this podcast? What's going on here? Is this just you're going to tune into the Full Scale podcast? What are you going to expect, right? Sometimes you're going to get tips, and most you're going to get anecdotes. You're going to get some stories. I'm going to have guests on, and there's going to be a lot of shit talking, and I'm going to tell you what, in my mind, what this is. When you go out and you're hunting with your buddies and you're in the duck blind or you're at deer camp and, the jokes are flying, the conversations are teetering on some unsavory things, there's something about, something primal about going on a hunt or a fishing trip and telling stories around that campfire, right? Or while you're doing it. And you could be giving each other shit or just telling stories. And we allow each other to retell those stories, right? We've all heard the stories a million times. And you catch yourself, at least I catch myself, like going into the same story that I know the people that I'm telling it to have already heard this story a dozen times, probably this year. But I'm going to tell the story, start to finish. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to stop. And so I kind of want that. I'm trying to capture that. That's kind of what I want for this podcast, right? So in an industry, and this is kind of the disclaimer right now, all right? There's going to be language in this podcast. I've probably heard some already. I mean, it's not going to be F this and F that and MF this, right? But I'm not really going to outwardly censor myself or outwardly censor the conversation. Like, I want it to be as natural and as close to that conversation you have when you're out doing those things. So keep that in mind. So I know, like, in this industry, and I've heard it said, like, keep it clean. You got kids that are going to tune into this, and you got it. And I feel like a problem with that. It's not a problem. Like that's great. There's a lot of those out there already. And if that's the program you're looking for, hey man, no offense, go listen to it. I listen to them too. They're great. They're awesome. But there's this kind of tone that you get with a lot of those that it's manufactured, right? It's almost like a politician. You know how they trying to say something and they're choosing the right words and they're trying to grab the widest audience. Like, and I get it. That's what sells. You're gonna the more listeners you have or viewers you have, the more advertising you're gonna get. Like, I get it. But this is gonna be more niche, I guess, for lack of a better term. This is just gonna be me. Like, right? My sense of humor. Anybody knows me. It can be twisted at times. It can be dark at times, and I'm sure offensive at times to certain people. But I can promise you this, right? And I think intent matters. I don't mean any of it. No, I'm not a stand-up comedian, so I don't get I don't have the I don't get to go, I'm a comedian. I get to say whatever I want. But you know what I am? I am a person with individual, and I have my own thoughts, and I am who I am. In this day and age, with podcasts and the free internet, and the fact that I'm not sponsored right now by anybody, so I don't have to worry about losing an account, right? Maybe I should worry about that I'm not going to get an account, but I'm really not too worried about that either. If you listen to all the podcasts out there, and there's a million of them, you look at the most successful ones, like, they're not censoring themselves, right? They're who they are, and I think people like that. They like the what's the word I'm looking for? Crap. I can't think of it right now. It's genuine, right? So at least that's what attracts me to those podcasts is when you're listening to them, it's almost like you know them. You get to know them, on a personal level. And I want that. That's what I want this to be. So, fair warning. You tune in this podcast at times. Once the beer starts flowing, who knows where the conversations go. I'm not going to try to steer it. If I have a guest and he's a goose outfitter from Arkansas or something, and we're talking about spring snow goose hunting, that's going to be like loosely what we start talking about. Where it goes from there, who the hell knows? We might start go off on a tangent about what our favorite movie is or something like that. Like I really want it to be as close as possible as, just sitting down like you would if you went out hunting together, you went out fishing together, like the conversation you have on the boat or that you have at the shack. Yeah, like that's what I'm going for. And at times, like I said, at times I don't beat a dead horse here, but at times it might come across as a little unsavory. So you've been warned, but hopefully it's at least entertaining. And there, I've said it. Now I will throw us out there for a little bit of credibility's sake. I did go to school for broadcasting. I went to Brown Institute in Minneapolis. Got my degree. Went into radio. I was in small market radio for a little bit. And then my second job, I was in Iowa, Knoxville, Iowa. And just didn't really care for the programming or the way that, it wasn't a good fit. I wasn't a good fit with that radio station. My daughter had just been born. I was making like no money. And like small market radio, you don't make anything. I was working ridiculous hours, like 70 hours a week, and I was making $17.50 a month. Not an hour, a month. Not $17.50, but $1,750 a month gross. Yeah, that's gross. So try raising a family on that, right? We just couldn't do it. So then when that job didn't pan out, I tried finding another radio job. I found a position that would have absolutely loved in Warroad, Minnesota, heart of hunting and fishing and everything else. It would still, like, I had a morning show. Both my other positions were both morning show positions. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. And this one up there, I wasn't the guy, right? I would have been like the co-host and the sports guy. Like, perfect. Like, that is perfect. But we couldn't come up with, because they're such a small market, we just couldn't come up with a number. I knew what I needed to make to survive. I mean, just to survive. And, we tried to get creative with some numbers, and we just couldn't get it. Just couldn't get it done. So that was the end of my broadcast career. Then from there, I became an ironworker. My father-in-law at the time was a retired ironworker, so he got me into the trades, and that's what I did for the next 17 years. And it was a good job, man. You go out there, you bust your ass. I met a lot of really cool guys and girls, and it put me in a position where I am right now. Now, here's what you're going to find out. I'm going to probably have a couple of those guys on as guests because I'll fish with some of them or hunt with them, or at least just bullshit with them. And some of them are pretty funny. I'm gonna get them on here. Those are going to be good times. Now, you're going to hear me talk shit about ironwork, like busting rods and how miserable it is. So I'm going to kind of dog on it. But truth be told, I'll forever be thankful for it because it allowed me to get to where I am right now, which is able to start my own outdoor company, FullScale Outdoors, start this podcast, which, hopefully these things are successful. But to be honest with you, that's not why I'm doing the podcast. I'm doing it because I loved broadcasting, and I've always thought, like, I wish I could just do my own radio program. And now, look, here we are. You can. I got a little recorder, I got a microphone, boom. I'm broadcasting, right? I don't need a network. It's awesome. We live in a great time. But the ironworking, it allowed me to make some money, and enough that I'm taking a chance. I'm doing what a lot of people like to do. Do what you love. Well, I like to hunt and fish and forage. Well, I'm making a career out of it. So win, lose, or draw, here I am. I'm going to give it a shot. What do I got to lose, right? Ironworking will always be there if I need it. Hopefully I don't need it, but so there's a little insight. So where do we go from here, right? Well, that's kind of up to a little bit up to you guys. So if you're listening to this, if you made it this far, we are what? Going on 45 minutes into this podcast right now of me just rambling about this, that, and the other thing. This is a good introduction, right? I wanted to give you a little insight of who I am, what you can kind of expect, and what I hope for in this podcast. And so if there's something you'd like to talk about, you got some questions, maybe I can answer them, or if I can't answer them, I'll find out who has the answer, right? We'll talk about it. So you can go on to my website, www.fullscaleoutdoors.com, and check the website out there. I got a blog on there. To be honest, I'm not very active on that blog. I need to be more active on that blog, so you guys hold me accountable on that. Email me, say, hey, slacker, you haven't posted anything new. In fact, I went on there and looked, and then my last blog was about, here, we'll put this in perspective. My last blog on there was about ice fishing last season, and we're just now starting to get into I walked on the ice today. I did a little bit of ice fishing today, just basically checking the ice out. So yeah, didn't do anything all summer, but I was busy. I'm in a bass league, and I'm just making excuses now, but in a bass league, trying to get Full Scale up and running. But it's just an excuse. I could have easily found some time to sit down and write about it, and starting your own company, there's something to write about. I'll tell you that. There's a lot that goes into that. So blog on FullScale.outdoors.com. I'm on Facebook. You can find my personal page, Dale Luginbill, on Facebook. Full Scale Outdoors on Facebook. We got a group. There's a Full Scale Outdoors group page that I'd really love to see grow. Go on there and post pictures and share stories and funny memes and give each other shit and ask questions and grow a good network where you can get some. You got a question about something, whether it's like, hey, what do you guys do in this particular situation when the weather gets cold, or what's your favorite go-to lure, or it could be anything. You get a big enough. That's the beauty of having one of those big networks, and trust me, like everybody and their brother now has their own page like that. But it's just a good way to network. So I like them. I like them all. I'm a big proponent of high tide raises all ships. So if you're listening to this and you got your own outdoor page and you want some traffic to it, hey, let me know, man. I'll like it. I'm a part of I don't even know how many different hunting and fishing groups right now. It's just a good way of network. I'm not this I'm not going to promote your page because then nobody will be coming to my page. Hey, there's enough time to go to everybody's page. A lot of people are starting this stuff. And I forgot. I do want to mention this. I do have a YouTube channel as well. And there's not a whole lot on there right now, but that's going to change. Hopefully start making a lot of videos and getting that content out there. I shouldn't say hopefully. It's going to happen. We're going to do that. We're definitely going to go do that. So that'll be another outlet. And also I'll be guiding. So I don't have the website updated yet. Hopefully very soon. But anybody listening to this, if you want to get in on some, right now we're getting into the ice fishing season, and you want to go out and you want to get into some really good panfish action, that's kind of my thing. I can take you, we can catch the walleyes. I'm in Minnesota. That's walleye guides are dime a dozen. They're everywhere. And if that's what you want to do, heck yeah, let's go get them, right? But I'm just telling you, what I really get off on, what I specialize in is those panfish. We're going to go out and we're going to run a gun. We're going to pop a bunch of holes. I'm going to keep you on fish. We're going to make a pile, right? You're going to get a meat pile, or we'll just catch and release. If you just want to go for the big dogs, we'll do that too. What I want Full Scale to be, as far as the guiding side of it, is you come to me, if you're not from Minnesota, or even if you are from Minnesota, and you just don't get to do it as much, and you're trying to, cut down on that. Maybe you don't have the equipment, or you don't have time to go scout these lakes out, or whatever your reasons are for hiring a guide, right? Come to me, come to Full Scale Outdoors. Tell me what you want. What are you hoping in this trip? And if it's within my power, I'm going to do everything in my power to make that happen. And if I can't do it, I'm going to put you in touch with the right people, whether I make a dime on it or not, right? I want you to have the best outdoor experience humanly possible. So that's what I want from the full scale outdoors guiding aspect of it, right? I'd love it to be a one stop shop eventually down the road, that it can just become one of those names where, I can ferret out the different guides. Like, I'm not going to recommend some guy that's just on there, right? You're not just going to get to put your name under the Full Scale Outdoors banner. Like, I'm going to need to know you. And a lot of times I'm probably going to hire these guides myself and go out and check them out. So it becomes, I'd love it in the future, Full Scale Outdoors becomes like a standard for good and trustable guide services. It'd be nice just to have something like that. So, as a consumer, you go online and, if you see the full scale check mark on it or whatever it becomes, maybe a stamp or who the hell knows, that you have the presence of mind and you have the confidence that, all right, this is going to be a good trip. Now, with that comes that, stipulation that nobody, I don't care who it is, like, sometimes fish don't bite, right? Sometimes the birds don't fly. That's just how it is. These guaranteed to catch fish things, you know what they do? They waste time and they catch like the dinky little sunfish, so then you have to pay them. So, it's just a gimmick. So you're not going to find that on my page. I want to be up front and honest with you. But I will tell you this, I will bust my ass and do everything in my power to give you a good time on the water or in the field if we're going hunting. So hopefully this time next year we'll also be having a waterfall guide service for ducks and geese. That's my goal. We're going to work towards that. So we're going to start out with ice fishing this winter. Move into summer. We'll be bass fishing all summer. So if you want to get in on some bass fishing this coming summer, like the pros are doing, you get on the Ranger. We're going to run a gun. We're going to, I'll show you some techniques. It's whatever you want it to be. You want to, maybe you're not good at using a baitcaster. You never used a baitcaster in your life. If you want to use it, if you want to learn how to use it, I'm willing to teach you. You cast that one out and you get that all backlashed. Well, put that one down. We'll grab it. I'll hand you another one. We'll keep going. I'll dig out the tangles at the end of the day. It's not a big deal. I love sharing my knowledge with people, and I'm still learning a bunch myself. But come along, take for a ride, and we'll have a good time. I guarantee you, if we don't catch fish, we're going to catch some laughs. That I can promise you. I have been accused of being somewhat childish and immature. I'm 45 years old. I would like to say I'm youthful, right? No, I'm forever a child. Who am I kidding? I like, that's what she said jokes, and so whatever, right? I like to have a good time, and so we'll have a good time together. So go online, check out www.fullscaleoutdoors.com. Find me on Facebook. Find me on Instagram. I do have a Snapchat account. That's just my personal one. I don't know how. I don't use that one that much, so whatever. So Instagram, Facebook are the. I might even have a Twitter. I never use Twitter, so just forget I even mentioned that one. But yeah, so you can get a hold of me on the website, and then we'll go from there. So any kind of guest, that you'd like me to try to get on this podcast, I am all ears. And they don't need to be professionals per se. Maybe you got a guy that you hunt and fish with, or a girl. I know. Here's another disclaimer. I meant to put this in the very beginning. I'm going to use the term guys very casually. So, like, when you're out with the guys hunting, ladies, I am not excluding you, because I know there's a ton of women that are in the outdoors, that love the outdoors, that are as passionate as any dude out there, right? I am definitely not excluding you. So just know when I say guys, I mean you too. I don't want to have to go guys and gals, every time. Like, all right, you're guys, right? Can we just be honest here? You're guys. I don't mean that in a gender sort of way. It's just it's a blanket statement. All right, we got that out of the way. So anyways, if there's somebody that you like to fish with and hunt with that you think's hilarious or just is really interesting, and they're a good conversationalist, and you think would be a good fit, let me know, man. I would love to. I like to meet new people. So it might be something as easy as, hey, my buddy Jack Smith over there, we go fishing and he's just a stitch. He can't take him seriously. He's super sarcastic. He's just really funny. I think you'd love it. Hey, give us contact information. Maybe we'll go spend the day on the water and just bullshitting, and if time allows, come back, do a podcast, and hopefully it's super entertaining. I'm all about growing this network and going back to like what I said earlier. I want this to just be what it is when you're out with your friends, right? Your friends and family, and you're having a good time. That's what the FullScale Outdoors podcast is supposed to be. That's what I want it to be. And I'm going to need you guys' help with that. So let me know anybody you want on here, subjects you'd like me to tackle. Trust me, we get really deep into this. I'll give you opinions about all sorts of things. I try to keep an open mind on a lot of things, but know this for sure. I talk a lot of shit. I like to ruffle feathers. I don't want to get anybody actually pissed off. I just like giving people the needle, right? Like my old ironworker buddies, they'll tell you, right? I'm ripping on everybody, but I don't mean nothing by it. Like I just like to have a good time, and I like getting it as much as giving it out. So, if you got someone that can come with some good one-liners and you can stump me, man, bring it on. I love it. I love that just about as much as anything. So, all right, appreciate you guys. If you've made it here, we're almost to the 1 hour mark. Not that I have a time restraint, but I feel like I said what I wanted to say. Real quick, I'll just give you an update where we're at in Minnesota. It's a time where we're super busy. The ice fishing's kicking off right now. In fact, if you want open water, you can still find that on some rivers and stuff like that. I know some guys are. We're in the middle of deer season. The firearm season just ended. The bow season's still going on. We got a muzzleloader season coming up. Obviously, all the small game seasons are open right now. Duck hunting is open. Goose hunting is open. Grouse, pheasants, squirrels, rabbits, you name it. So we are in a spot now where it's hard to decide what you're going to do. That's like one of the biggest things. It's like, are we goose hunting tomorrow? Let's go find a field. Oh, I really want to sit in the stand. So you gotta kind of choose your battles at this point in time. So, I'm in the North Metro. I'm north of the Twin Cities in Minnesota here. I went and checked out a little lake. There was 2.5 inches of nice, good, clear, solid ice. So we are definitely, outside of some big warm patch hitting, I think we're in it. I think we are in ice fishing. Usually you try to find fishable ice after Thanksgiving, but I'm recording this the Sunday before Thanksgiving, and we got fishable ice. So be safe out there. This early ice, don't risk it. As much as like fishing, it ain't worth dying for. But be really careful out there. Have some fun. You have some success. You have some questions. Go on Facebook, man. Find that FullScale Outdoors outdoor group, or even just the FullScale Outdoors business page. Throw a comment out there. I'd like to see what you guys got to say, and I love seeing your guys' picks, and you're not gonna hear me rag on you about dead animal hanging off your pickup truck, right? This is a safe this is a safe space for outdoorsmen, all right? All right, guys, that's it. That's it for this very first inaugural podcast. I hope it was at least mildly entertaining at times. I'm going to finish this beer that I cracked open and never took a swig from because I was talking too much. And we're going to go watch the Vikings hopefully whoop up on the Bears. Sunday Night Football, battle for the North. This is a big one for the Vikes. Big one for the Vikes. So, all right, guys, appreciate you listening. We'll talk to you later.